She arrived with $200 in her pocket, a suitcase held together with rope, and a heart heavy with fear. She couldn't speak the language. She didn't know a single person. She was alone in a country that felt like another planet, and every instinct told her to turn back. But she didn't, because sometimes the only way forward is through the fire. This is the story of a woman who had every reason to fail and every reason to give up, but she didn't. And by the end of this, you'll understand why her story isn't just hers. It's yours too. Her name doesn't matter because she could be anyone. She could be your mother, your neighbor, or the quiet woman you pass on the street without a second glance. She came from a place where opportunity was a myth, where dreaming was dangerous, and survival was the only goal. She left everything behind, her family, her home, the only language her tongue had ever known, because staying meant watching her children inherit the same cycle of poverty that had crushed generations before her. So she made a choice that terrified her. She bought a one-way ticket to a country that promised nothing but a chance. Just a chance, that's all she wanted. The first night, she slept in a bus station. The second night, she found a room she shared with 5 other people. The walls were thin, the mattress sagged, and the cold seeped through the windows like it was searching for her bones. She worked 3 jobs. She cleaned offices while the city slept. She washed dishes in a restaurant where the chef yelled at her in words she couldn't understand. She babysat children who cried when she tried to comfort them because even they could sense she was different. Her hands cracked and bled. Her feet swelled until she could barely walk. But she kept going because that's what immigrants do. They carry the weight of 2 worlds on their shoulders and still find the strength to climb. But here's what nobody tells you about rock bottom. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't come with a sign that says, "This is it. This is your lowest moment." It comes quietly, in the middle of an ordinary day. For her, it came on a Tuesday afternoon. She was standing in a grocery store, holding a carton of eggs, trying to calculate if she could afford them and still pay rent. A woman behind her sighed loudly, impatient and annoyed. She felt the shame burn through her chest like acid. She put the eggs back, and as she walked out of that store empty-handed, something inside her broke. Not in a destructive way, in a clarifying way. She realized she had 2 choices. She could keep surviving, or she could start living. She chose the latter. She started learning English by watching television with a notebook in her lap, writing down words she didn't understand, and looking them up in a borrowed dictionary. She practiced conversations with herself in the mirror until her reflection stopped looking like a stranger. She saved every single dollar that didn't go to rent or food. She didn't buy new clothes. She didn't go out. She didn't rest. She became obsessed with one idea, that her current reality was not her permanent address. It was just a chapter, and she was the author. With her savings, she bought ingredients and started cooking the food from her homeland. The recipes her grandmother had taught her, the flavors that carried memories of home. She made small portions and sold them to her coworkers. At first, people bought out of pity. Then they bought because the food was extraordinary. Word spread, orders increased. She started waking up at 3 in the morning to prepare meals in that tiny shared kitchen, packaging them in containers she washed and reused, delivering them on foot because she couldn't afford a car. People asked her to cater small gatherings, then bigger events, then restaurants wanted her recipes. 10 years later, she owned a chain of restaurants. 20 years later, her face was on the cover of business magazines. 30 years later, she was employing hundreds of people, many of them immigrants like herself, giving them the chance she had once desperately needed. But the empire she built wasn't made of money. It was made of resilience. It was made of mornings when quitting seemed easier than continuing. It was made of nights when she cried herself to sleep and still woke up ready to fight. It was made of a single decision, to refuse to let her circumstances define her destiny. Here's what her story teaches us. First, your starting point doesn't determine your destination. She began with nothing, but she understood that nothing is also a foundation. You can build anything on nothing if you're willing to work. Second, isolation is a test, not a sentence. She was alone, but she transformed loneliness into focus. When you have no one to lean on, you discover the strength within yourself. Third, small actions compound into extraordinary results. She didn't start with a business plan. She started with one meal, one customer, one step. Success isn't a leap. It's 1,000 tiny steps taken consistently in the same direction. Fourth, sacrifice isn't suffering when it serves a vision. She gave up comfort, sleep, and ease because she knew temporary pain creates permanent change. And finally, your story isn't finished until you decide it is. She could have stayed a victim of her circumstances. Instead, she became the hero of her own life. So here's my question for you. What are you waiting for? What excuse are you telling yourself about why you can't start, why you can't change, why you can't rise? She didn't speak the language, and she still built an empire. She had $200, and she still found a way. She was alone, and she still succeeded. You have more resources, more opportunities, more advantages than she ever did. So what's stopping you? Start today. Start small. Start scared. But start, because your life is waiting for you to stop preparing for it and start living it. And one day, someone will tell your story, and they'll wonder how you did it with so little. And you'll smile, because you'll know the secret she knew all along. You don't need much to start. You just need to refuse to stop.